Would Donald Trump win a presidential election again today? 5 experts, and a bookmaker, have their say. There are many words to describe the 12 months since Donald Trump was elected. Smooth is not one of them. Mr. Trump won despite getting almost 3 million fewer votes than Hillary Clinton. Since then, there have been sackings, spats with NFL players, and saber-rattling with North Korea. His approval rating has fallen, and a special counsel is investigating the election itself. But his supporters say a booming economy and improved border security prove they were right to take a gamble on an outsider. So would the president win again now? After shocking the world in November 2016, Donald Trump sent Alan Lichtman a handwritten note. "Professor, congrats, good call," it said. The note was written on a printout of a Washington Post article from September 23, 2016. In the article, Professor Lichtman said that, despite what most experts thought, Mr. Trump was heading for the White House. For the 9th presidential election in a row, he called it right. So how would Mr. Trump do in a hypothetical election today? There are probably enough negative keys to predict his defeat, says Professor Lichtman, who teaches at American University. The professor uses 13 keys to predict elections. They focus on the incumbent party, and cover the economy, scandal, the candidate's charisma, and other areas. It is very difficult to call an early, hypothetical election, Professor Lichtman says. For example, one of his keys is the midterm elections, which haven't happened yet. But he says things aren't looking good for President Trump. Certainly the lack of any significant accomplishment at home and abroad, and scandals that seem to be piling up, would bode not well at all, he says. Professor Lichtman says the economy is, for now, a positive. But he thinks Mr. Trump himself is a negative. The very, very negative personal ratings would count against him, he says. He also downplays the importance of his opponent. "Only one of my 13 keys has anything to do with the opposing candidate," he says. Professor Lichtman thinks the Trump administration would need to do a lot to be confident of re-election. "And I am not sure how they would get rid of the scandals," he adds. Indeed, he thinks the scandals are so great, he wrote a book predicting Mr. Trump's impeachment. Does he stand by that? "You bet I am standing by it," he says. The Trafalgar Group, a small pollster from Atlanta, Georgia, didn't just forecast Trump's win. They forecast the margin. So, 1 year on, how would a rematch go? "If it is the same matchup, I don't think there's any question," says Robert Cahaly, the group's senior strategist. Trump would win again. Trafalgar has been in the field in 12 states this year, and always measures Trump's approval. Trump is still doing things that energize the people who brought him to the White House, says Mr. Cahaly. Such as? The NFL thing. Anyone who thinks the NFL thing has hurt Trump among the people who won the swing states is completely crazy. But what about the Russian links? The special counsel indicting Donald Trump's former campaign chairman? There are strong Russian connections with Hillary now, he says. The idea there's something fishy going on with Hillary, if nothing else, has counterbalanced any accusation against Trump. But there is a caveat. My personal opinion has always been the Republican Party was very lucky Joe Biden wasn't the nominee. He appeals to the same demographic as Trump. It would have been a battle royal in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Since 20 January, Gallup has carried out a daily poll, asking Americans whether they approve of the job Donald Trump is doing. The numbers aren't great. From June, Mr. Trump's approval rating has usually been below 40%. On 29th of October, it was just 33%. But, says Frank Newport, Gallup's editor-in-chief, that doesn't mean Donald Trump would lose a hypothetical election. He may be trending down a little, but if you look at the big picture from March or so, there's not a dramatic change, he says. Gallup also tracked Mr. Trump's popularity before the election. He's unpopular now and he was unpopular then, says Mr. Newport. Your browser does not support this interactive content. You must be using a modern browser with JavaScript enabled to view our results maps. He lost the popular vote in 2016 and he managed to squeak in the Electoral College. I wouldn't rule out the possibility, with the same opponent, he could pull that off again. Mr. Newport, however, will not put his neck on the line. I absolutely would not say he would win, says Mr. Newport. I neither confirm nor deny. Helmut Norpoth, a political science professor at Stony Brook University in New York, also forecast Mr. Trump's win in 2016. If you look at his approval rating, it's abysmal, says Professor Norpoth. It's the worst any president has had, at this stage in his presidency. It looks like a long shot, but it was a long shot for him to win in the first place. So, in a hypothetical election against Hillary, who would he put his money on? I would bet that he would win again, he says. He would beat her again. Like Robert Gahuli from the Trafalgar Group, he thinks a different Democrat could have a better chance. But he doesn't know who that might be. I think Democrats don't realize what kind of a special candidate they had in Barack Obama, he says. They had Bill Clinton, they had Obama, but these guys don't come around every year. I don't know who, at this point, would have that kind of appeal. The answer to Professor Norpoth's question, says Professor Barbara Perry, might be the previous vice president. If tomorrow we put Donald Trump up against Joe Biden, I think Joe Biden would win, says Professor Perry, the director of presidential studies at the University of Virginia's Miller Center. The problem with that plan, she says, is that Mr. Biden will be 77 when the 2020 election is due. So if Mr. Trump faced Mrs. Clinton tomorrow? I would say, against Hillary, he would win, she says. His win in 2016 was multi-causal, of course. But what ultimately put him over the top was the Hillary factor in those three states, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. On 18th of October last year, almost 3 weeks before the election, Irish bookmaker Paddy Power was sure of the result. So sure, in fact, they paid out early. Sadly for them, they called it wrong, they paid out on Hillary. Their mistake cost them $4.5 million. Since then, they've appointed a head of Trump betting, Joe Lee. On election day last year, Trump went in as a 4-1 underdog, he says. That more or less gave him a 20% chance. If we were going to mark it again, tomorrow or next week, we'd probably be closer to 50-50. Trump has been strong on terrorism in the last few days, and on other topics that resonate with his core supporters, he says. So, in the hypothetical election, Trump v. Hillary Part 2, where would this bookmaker place his money? Oh, I'd absolutely go with Trump, he says. No question or doubt about it. Like the professors and pollsters, Paddy Power thinks Mr. Trump's chances are all down to the caliber of candidate the Democrats roll out. The bookmaker has taken money on, among others, Mark Zuckerberg and Oprah Winfrey, while the Hawaiian Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard has been backed into 21. For now, though, Mr. Trump is calling the shots. The bad news for the president? Paddy Power has him 5/4 to be impeached, down from 9/4 before the special counsel's indictments.